The council chamber was massive. 57 species sat in their designated seats, arranged in a perfect circle around the central platform. Ambassador Hyun-woo stood in the middle, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. His face showed no emotion as Chancellor Vexthor read the charges. Humanity has failed to contribute meaningfully to our galactic progress, the insectoid chancellor announced. His multiple eyes gleamed with satisfaction. They consume resources without providing adequate return. Their culture remains incompatible with our unified vision. After 200 years of membership, we have seen no evidence that they deserve their place among us. Hyun-woo listened quietly. Around the chamber, other council members nodded or made sounds of agreement. A few looked uncomfortable. Captain Nari sat in the observation gallery above, watching her ambassador with careful eyes. She had known this was coming. They all had. We call for a vote, Vexthor continued. Should humanity retain its membership in the Galactic Unity Council? The voting began. One by one, holographic displays showed the results. Red lights outnumbered blue lights by a large margin. 49 species voted to expel humanity. Only 8 voted to keep them. The decision was final. Hyun-woo waited for the chamber to fall silent. Then he stepped forward and bowed, a gesture of respect from Earth's Asian traditions. When he straightened, his voice was calm and clear. The people of Earth accept this decision, he said. We will not appeal. We will not protest. You have made your choice and we will honor it. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that ranged from satisfied to guilty. We will withdraw all human personnel, stations, and assets within 72 hours. We wish the Galactic Unity Council continued success and prosperity. That was it. No anger, no threats, no desperate pleas for reconsideration. Chancellor Vexthor blinked his multiple eyes in surprise. He had expected arguments, maybe even tears. Instead, the human simply bowed again and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. In the observation gallery, Captain Nari stood and left as well. Other humans in the chamber followed. They moved with quiet efficiency, gathering their belongings and filing out through the exits. Within 10 minutes, not a single human remained in the council chamber. That was easier than expected, one council member said. Perhaps they finally understand their place, another agreed. Councillor Mothrek, an amphibian who had voted against the expulsion, said nothing, but he watched the exits with troubled eyes. 3 hours later, the withdrawal began. On Council Station 7, Engineer Daehyun received the message from Earth. He was deep in the maintenance tunnels, fixing a problem with the life support systems. He read the message twice, then closed his toolkit and began walking back to the human quarters. Leaving already? A Manthari technician asked. Your shift isn't over. It is now, Daehyun replied politely. Humanity has been asked to leave. We're going home. All of you? Who will maintain the Manthari stopped, suddenly realizing what this meant. Daehyun didn't answer. He just kept walking. Across known space, similar scenes played out. Human doctors stopped mid-surgery to brief local staff on how to continue. Human merchants transferred their cargo manifests and shipping routes to council databases. Human teachers sent lesson plans to their alien students. Human engineers left detailed instructions for maintaining the systems they had built. But they took their research with them. They took their specialized equipment. They took the knowledge that existed only in their heads, the experience that came from years of patient work. Dr. Yuna stood in her laboratory on the medical research station above Ventar 4. Around her, samples of the plague that was killing thousands sat in containment fields. She had been so close to a cure. 3 more days, maybe 4, and she would have had it. Her assistant, a young Ventari named Cleese, watched with desperate eyes. Please, Dr. Yuna, my people are dying. You can't just leave now. Yuna's expression was sad but firm. I'm sorry, Cleese, the council has decided we're not needed. We must respect that decision. She began packing her research into encrypted storage containers. I've left you all the public research. Perhaps another species will finish the work. But you're the only one who understands how the plague mutates, Cleese said. No one else has your experience with adaptive diseases. Then I hope someone learns quickly, Yuna said softly. She placed the final container in the transport case and locked it. I truly am sorry. On Earth, President Yujin sat in her office in Seoul, watching reports stream in from across the galaxy. Every human was coming home. The withdrawal was proceeding exactly as planned. "They don't understand yet," she said to her chief of staff. "No, ma'am," he agreed, "but they will." In the council chamber, Administrator Lixana was beginning to understand. She had pulled up the logistics reports for the past month, trying to plan for humanity's absence. What she found made her feathers stand on end. Humans maintained 73% of the communication relay stations. Humans operated 40% of all cargo transport. Humans staffed 90% of the deep space rescue stations. The list went on and on. She rushed to find Chancellor Vexthor, but he was in a meeting celebrating their successful vote. She would try again tomorrow, she decided. Surely it could wait one day. It could not. 6 hours after humanity began their withdrawal, the first system failures started. A communication relay in Sector 19 went offline. Without human technicians to reset it, the automated backup failed to engage. 17 systems lost contact with the central network. On Ventar R4, the plague spread faster. Without Dr. Yuna's team distributing daily treatments, the infection rate doubled overnight. Hospitals filled beyond capacity. Trade ships began reporting delays. The routes through the Telvar Nebula, which humans had mapped and updated weekly, were suddenly showing outdated information. 3 ships got lost in the nebula's interference fields. By the time the Council's night shift came on duty, emergency reports were already accumulating. But no one connected them yet. No one realized that these weren't separate problems. They were symptoms of the same disease: humanity's absence. In orbit above Earth, Captain Nari watched the last transport ships arrive from Council space. Thousands of vessels, all carrying humans who had lived and worked across the galaxy. They had built lives out there. They had friends among other species. But when called home, they came without complaint. "All ships accounted for," her first officer reported. "Good," Nari said. She looked at the moon, then at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the Council was having its celebration. Let them enjoy it while it lasted. "How long do you think it will take?" the first officer asked quietly. Nari considered the question. "For them to realize what they've lost? 24 hours for the first real problems, a week before they panic, a month before they understand the full scope." She paused. "Maybe longer. They've taken us for granted for 200 years. Some habits are hard to break. And if they come asking for help, then we'll see if they've learned anything," Nari replied. "We're not refusing to help anyone. We're just refusing to be invisible anymore." Ambassador Hyunwoo appeared on the bridge, having just finished the final diplomatic protocols. He looked tired but satisfied. "It's done," he said simply. "We're officially no longer members of the Council. How do you feel?" Nari asked. Hyunwoo smiled slightly. "Free," he said. "For the first time in 2 centuries, we don't owe anyone anything. Now we'll see who we really are and who they really are." He walked to the window and looked at Earth below. Blue and green and beautiful. "Welcome home." "Ambassador," Nari said softly. "Welcome home," Hyunwoo agreed. Administrator Lixana didn't sleep that night. By morning, her office was filled with red-tagged reports. Communication failures, medical emergencies, shipping delays. Each report seemed minor on its own, but together they painted a disturbing picture. "Get me the maintenance logs for the communication relays," she ordered her assistant. The data appeared on her screen. Every failed relay had the same thing in common: human maintenance signatures. The systems had been installed by various species, but humans had been the ones keeping them running. Small fixes here, updates there, constant monitoring and adjustment. All of it done so quietly that no one had noticed. Until now. "How many relays have human maintenance signatures?" Lixana asked. Her assistant's feathers drooped. 73%, Administrator." Lixana felt cold. "And how many Council species have the training to maintain them?" "We're checking, but it appears to be very few. The humans use some unique techniques that they never formally documented. They just did the work." On Ventar 4, the situation was worse. The plague ward where Dr. Yuna had worked was in chaos. Patients filled every bed and more arrived every hour. The local doctors had Yuna's public research notes, but the notes didn't explain how she had made her daily decisions. They didn't capture her intuition about how the disease evolved. Clee stood in the center of the ward, exhausted and desperate. 3 patients had died in the last hour alone. The Ventari government was calling for emergency council aid, But the Council's medical ships were scattered across dozens of systems. Without human coordination, no one knew where the ships were or how to mobilize them quickly. "We had a cure coming," Clee said to no one in particular. 3 more days. That's all she needed. An older doctor approached. "Could we contact Dr. Yuna? Ask her to share the research?" Kliss had already tried. His messages bounced back with a simple error. "Earth communications protocols updated. Please request new access credentials through diplomatic channels." Diplomatic channels that no longer existed between Earth and the Council. In Sector 12, the cargo ship Brightwing sat at the edge of the void drift. Captain Torn studied his navigation display with growing concern. The void drift was a region of unstable gravity fields that shifted constantly. Every major trade route passed through it or around it. For decades, human survey ships had mapped the safe paths and updated the navigation database daily. The last update was 3 days ago. "Before humanity left, can we use the old paths?" his first officer asked. Torn pulled up the historical data. "The drift changes every few hours. 3-day-old data is suicide." He drummed his fingers on the console. "We'll have to go around. Add 12 days to our journey. Our cargo will spoil. Better spoiled cargo than a dead crew." Across the void drift, dozens of other captains were making the same decision. Trade routes that normally carried hundreds of ships per day were empty. Goods piled up at the drift's edge. Colony worlds that depended on regular shipments began rationing food and medicine. The Council's trade ministry was flooded with complaints. Minister Shale tried to organize an alternative survey mission, but none of the Council species had ships designed for drift mapping. The humans had used specialized sensors and navigation computers that they had built themselves. No one else had the equipment or the knowledge. "Could we buy the technology from Earth?" someone suggested. Minister Shale sent the request. It bounced back with the same error message about updated communication protocols. By the afternoon of the first day, Administrator Lixana finally got her meeting with Chancellor Vexthor. She brought her reports and her data. She spread them across his desk with shaking hands. "Chancellor, we have a serious problem," she began. Vexthor waved one of his multiple limbs dismissively. "Minor adjustment issues. Every organization experiences some disruption during transitions. Give the systems a few days to stabilize. Sir, these aren't minor issues." The humans were maintaining critical infrastructure across 17 sectors. Communication relays, medical stations, trade routes, navigation systems. "Then we'll maintain them ourselves," Vexthor interrupted. "We are not helpless children, Administrator. We managed before humans joined the Council. We'll manage after they leave." Lixana wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. The Chancellor had made up his mind. She gathered her reports and left, her stomach churning with worry. That evening, things got worse. The navigation buoy network in the Kelmar system failed completely. Without human maintenance, the automated systems had degraded past the point of recovery. 6 ships collided in the orbital traffic lanes. 34 people died. On Council Station 7, life support fluctuated for 3 hours before emergency crews stabilized it. Engineer Dahyun had left detailed instructions, but they were written in technical language that assumed a certain level of background knowledge. The maintenance crew struggled to follow them, making several mistakes before finally getting the system stable. Medical supply shipments failed to reach a dozen worlds. The Council's medical logistics network had been coordinated by human specialists who tracked thousands of variables: disease outbreaks, seasonal illness patterns, supply production rates, shipping lane conditions. They had done it all through an integrated system that required constant human judgment to function. Without them, the system defaulted to basic automated distribution. Medicine went to the wrong places. Critical supplies sat in warehouses while people died for lack of them. Reports flooded into Council headquarters faster than staff could read them. Each report revealed another system, another service, another critical function that humans had been quietly maintaining. The Council had never kept track because the humans had never asked for recognition. They had simply done the work year after year, decade after decade. Councillor Mothrek sat in his office reading through the reports with growing horror. He had voted against expelling humanity, but even he hadn't understood the full scope of their contribution. No one had. He pulled up the historical records going back 200 years. When had humans become so integral to everything? The answer was simple: gradually. They had arrived as junior members eager to help. They had volunteered for difficult tasks, taken on projects others found tedious, solved problems others couldn't spare time for, and they had never stopped. Never complained. Never demanded more votes or special privileges in return. The council had taken advantage of their generosity without even realizing it. Mothrek drafted a message to Chancellor Vexthor, urging immediate action to contact Earth and negotiate their return. He sent it with priority coding. The response came back an hour later. The council's decision is final. We will adapt. Humans are not irreplaceable, but the evidence said otherwise. By the end of the first 24 hours, the casualty count was rising, not from any attack or disaster, but from the simple absence of systems and services everyone had taken for granted. The communication networks that humans had maintained, the medical care they had provided, the food distribution they had coordinated, the safe navigation paths they had mapped, all of it was gone. Trade Minister Tai Hyun sat in his new office on Earth, monitoring the council news feeds. He watched the crisis unfold with professional detachment. He had tried to warn them. For years, he had suggested that the council should learn to maintain their own systems, should develop redundancy, should not depend so heavily on human expertise. They had always said yes, that's a good idea, we'll look into it, and then nothing had changed. Now they were paying the price. Should we offer to help? His assistant asked. Taehyun shook his head. They expelled us. If we come running back at the first sign of trouble, they'll learn nothing. They need to understand what they had before they can appreciate what they lost. People are dying. Yes, Taehyun said quietly, and that's terrible. But if we save them now, this will happen again in another decade. They need to feel the full weight of their decision. Only then will real change be possible. It was a cold calculation, but Taehyun had learned to think in terms of centuries, not days. Humanity's relationship with the Council needed to change fundamentally. That couldn't happen if humans kept rescuing the Council from their own choices. On Council Station 7, the automated cargo system failed. Without human oversight, packages were sorted incorrectly, delivered to wrong addresses, or lost entirely. Food shipments meant for the residential levels went to industrial storage. Medical supplies ended up in janitorial closets. The station's population began to panic as store shelves emptied and medication ran out. Administrator Lixana stood in the station's command center, watching chaos spread through her neat, orderly station. She had been so proud of this station. It ran like clockwork, she always said. Now she understood. It ran like clockwork because humans had been winding it every single day. The Krellian attack came on the 5th day. Their warships crossed the border in 3 places simultaneously, hitting Council outposts that had been peaceful for 80 years. The outposts sent distress calls, but no help arrived. The peacekeeping forces that should have responded didn't exist anymore. They had all been human. Commander Subin had led those forces. The Peacekeepers of Silence, they were called. For 8 decades, they had prevented wars through careful positioning and patient negotiation. They never fired first. They rarely fired at all. Their presence alone had been enough to keep the peace. When the Krellians tested the borders, they found empty space. The humans were gone. There was nothing to stop them. Council Defense Coordinator Ralvin stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Red symbols showed Krellian ships advancing deep into Council territory. His own forces were scattered, confused, unable to respond effectively. Where are the contingency plans? He demanded. The war game scenarios? His staff exchanged nervous looks. Sir, all the war games for the past 50 years assumed human support. Commander Subin designed them. The scenarios are locked in encrypted files we can't access. Ralvin felt his blood run cold.
Find another way.
Break the encryption. We've tried, sir. It's Earth origin security. Our best cryptographers say it would take months, maybe years. We don't have months, Ralvin shouted. He forced himself to calm down. Anger wouldn't help. Contact Earth, ask for the encryption keys. The message was sent. It bounced back. Earth's communication systems were closed to the Council. On the border, 3 outposts fell in as many days. 1,700 Council citizens died. The survivors fled deeper into Council space, carrying stories of the attack. The Valenti and Morsh species, old enemies who had been at peace for 60 years, heard about the Krellian attacks. They saw weakness in the Council. They saw opportunity. Border skirmishes broke out between them. Within 2 days, the skirmishes became battles. Within 4 days, it was open war. Why aren't the peacekeepers stopping this? The Valenti ambassador demanded. There are no more peacekeepers, Councillor Mothrek said quietly. We expelled them, remember? The ambassador's face changed as understanding dawned. The humans. But they just observed. They didn't actually do anything. Their presence did everything, Mothrek replied. We just never noticed. The technological sector was collapsing as well. The Galactic archives showed that research output had dropped by 34% in just 1 week. Human scientists had been filing new patents and discoveries constantly, sharing them freely with all Council species. More importantly, they had been the bridge between different species' research methods. Humans could understand how the insectoid Thraxians thought and translate it for the crystalline shard collective. They could take the shard's mathematical concepts and explain them to the emotional Ventari. They connected everyone's knowledge into a working whole. Without that bridge, scientists couldn't collaborate. Research ground to a halt. Dr. Jiwan had been one of those bridge scientists. Now she sat in her laboratory on Earth, reviewing the quantum mechanics research she had been coordinating between 7 different species. The project was supposed to revolutionize FTL travel. Each species had contributed a piece of the puzzle, but only she had seen how all the pieces fit together. They'll figure it out eventually, her colleague said. Maybe, Jiwan replied. In 5 years, 10 years, or maybe never, if they can't learn to understand each other's thinking. You could publish your synthesis, share it freely like you always did. Jiwan shook her head. That wouldn't help them. They need to learn to build bridges themselves. If I keep doing it for them, they'll never develop the skill. The universal translator stopped working properly on the 6th day. Diplomatic meetings became confused as the translator produced nonsense. Arguments broke out over mistranslated phrases. One species nearly declared war over what turned out to be a translation error. The problem was simple. The translator's contextual database needed constant updates. Human linguists had been adding new phrases, cultural references, and contextual meanings every single day. They studied how language was actually used, not just what words meant in dictionaries. Without daily updates, the translator defaulted to literal translations. It lost all nuance and context. And in galactic diplomacy, context was everything. Councillor Mothrek had been investigating humanity's contributions for 5 days. What he found staggered him. He compiled a report that ran to 300 pages, and even that only scratched the surface. Humans had maintained the Deep Space Rescue Network. 90% of all rescue stations were human-operated. When ships broke down in deep space, humans came to save them. They never asked for payment. They just came. Humans had operated the Galactic Food Bank. 2 billion beings across the galaxy depended on food aid. Humans had quietly organized the donations, managed the logistics, and ensured no one starved. They had absorbed the costs themselves when donations fell short. Humans had terraformed 13 worlds and given them to refugee species. Worlds that other species called worthless, too difficult to change. Humans had spent decades making them habitable, then handed them over without asking for anything in return. Humans had trained 400,000 specialists from other species, free education in human universities, free technical training in human facilities. They had educated an entire generation of council professionals, and they had done all of it without ever mentioning it. Without asking for recognition, without demanding more votes or seats or privileges. Mothrek took his report to Chancellor Vexthor. He placed it on the Chancellor's desk with careful hands. You need to read this, Mothrek said. Vexthor barely glanced at it. I'm busy managing the Krellian crisis. Your academic report can wait. This is the Krellian crisis, Mothrek said, and every other crisis we're facing. It's all connected. We expelled the foundation our civilization was built on. Ridiculous, Vexthor said. Humans were junior members. Support staff. They didn't build anything important. Mothrek wanted to scream. Instead, he opened the report to a specific page. Do you know who designed the defense grid around Council Station 7? Our military engineers, obviously. Wrong, humans designed it. Council engineers installed it, but humans did the actual work. Do you know who maintains the power systems on every major station? Our technicians, human-trained technicians following human-designed protocols. Sir, humans are embedded in every system we have. We never noticed because they never drew attention to themselves. Vexthor was finally reading the report. His expression slowly changed from dismissive to concerned to horrified. This can't be accurate, he said weakly. It's incomplete, Mothrek replied. I'm still finding new things they did. Every day I discover another essential service they provided. High Judge Corval entered the office without knocking. The reptilian judge's scales were dark with stress. Chancellor, we must contact Earth immediately. The situation is critical. I'm aware. You're not, Corval interrupted. I've been reviewing financial records. Do you know the banking guild debt? Yes, of course. The council owes the guild approximately nothing, Corval said. We owe nothing. Because humanity paid our debt. 3 years ago, when we couldn't make payments, they absorbed the entire debt. They never told us. They just quietly paid it and continued as if nothing had happened. Vexthor stared. That's 40 billion credits. 47 billion, Corval corrected. They paid it to maintain the council's reputation. To protect all of us from the guild's consequences. The Chancellor finally understood. Not fully, not yet, but enough to realize the magnitude of their mistake. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Request an emergency meeting. The message was sent. Like all the others, it bounced back. Earth's communications were closed. Vexthor tried back channels. He tried personal contacts. He tried every method he could think of. Every message bounced back with the same error. Protocols updated. Please request new access credentials through diplomatic channels. Diplomatic channels that no longer existed. They've cut us off completely, Vexthor said, his voice hollow. Can you blame them? Mothrek asked quietly. We threw them away. Why would they take our calls? On Earth, Ambassador Hyunwoo received reports about the Council's attempts to contact them. He read them without expression, then filed them away. They're getting desperate, his assistant noted. Good, Hyunwoo said. Desperate enough to change? That's what we need to see. Anyone can apologize when they're comfortable. True change comes from understanding what you lost and why. And if they don't change? Hyunwoo looked out his window at the Seoul skyline. Then the galaxy will remake itself without them. Other species are already reaching out to us. The ones we helped over the years, the ones we worked with personally. They remember. They value what we did. So we're not alone. We were never alone, Hyunwoo said. The council just thought we were beneath their notice. But there's a whole galaxy out here, full of species who appreciate cooperation over hierarchy. He pulled up a star map showing the Terran Alliance newly formed. 8 species had already joined. More were asking. They offered partnership, not membership. Equality, not subordination. This is what we should have built from the start, Hyunwoo said. The galactic economy collapsed in the 3rd week. It started with small banks failing on frontier worlds. These banks had been stable for decades, but they depended on complex financial instruments that required constant adjustment. Human financial experts had been making those adjustments, quietly stabilizing volatile markets and absorbing economic shocks that would have caused recessions. Without them, the markets swung wildly. A bad harvest on one agricultural world triggered panic selling. That panic spread to other sectors. Within days, 3 major banking institutions failed. Within 2 weeks, 17 more collapsed. Millions of people lost their savings overnight. Economic Minister Harva tried desperately to organize a response. She discovered that humans had been providing interest-free loans to developing species, allowing them to build infrastructure and grow their economies. Those loans were never recorded as council business because humans had done it privately, through Earth's own financial institutions. Now those loans were being called in. Not maliciously, but as a matter of standard financial practice. Earth's banks needed to reorganize their assets, and outstanding loans needed to be addressed. Species that couldn't pay faced economic ruin. Can't we negotiate? Harva asked her staff. We have no diplomatic contact with Earth, Minister. They're not answering any messages. Harva stared at her display, watching stock markets crash across dozens of worlds. The council's economy was integrated, interconnected. When one part failed, it dragged others down with it. How did we become so dependent on them? She asked. Her chief economic analyst pulled up historical data. It happened gradually over 2 centuries. Humans volunteered for difficult financial tasks, They stabilized emerging markets. They provided emergency loans when others wouldn't. They created the financial instruments that made modern trade possible. He paused. We thought they were just being helpful. We didn't realize they were holding everything together. The Krellian invasion accelerated. They captured 17 council worlds in the 4th week. Council forces tried to respond, but their coordination was terrible. Battle plans that assumed human tactical support fell apart. Ships arrived at the wrong locations. Supply lines broke down. Communications failed at critical moments. Defense Coordinator Ralvin lost 3 fleets in a single week. Not destroyed, just lost. They went to the wrong systems because the navigation data was outdated. Without human survey ships constantly updating the stellar drift calculations, ships ended up light years from their intended destinations. We're fighting blind, Ralvin told the council. Without accurate navigation, we can't coordinate fleet movements. Without tactical coordination, we can't mount effective defenses. Then find a solution, Vex Thor demanded. The solution was human, Ralvin said bluntly. Commander Subin's peacekeepers. Human tactical coordinators. Human survey ships. We expelled the solution, Chancellor. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, someone had said it plainly. They had expelled the people who made everything work. Councillor Mothrek stood. His investigation was complete and the results were damning. I present the full accounting of humanity's contributions to this council, he said. Over 200 years, humans have provided services worth an estimated 3 trillion credits. They asked for nothing in return. No special votes. No territory. No privileges. He displayed the data for everyone to see. They maintained 90% of critical infrastructure. They operated essential services across 73 sectors. They trained 400,000 professionals. They saved approximately 40 million lives through their medical and rescue services. The chamber stayed silent. Council members stared at the numbers with growing horror. They did all this while holding junior member status. Mothrek continued. We gave them 3 council votes out of 507. We treated them as support staff. And they never complained. They just kept working, kept helping, kept building the galaxy we all enjoyed. Why didn't they tell us? Someone asked. Why didn't they demand recognition? They did, Mothrek said quietly. Ambassador Hyunwoo submitted reports every year detailing human contributions. The reports were filed and ignored. We never read them because we assumed humans were doing minor support work. He pulled up one of those reports. This one from 10 years ago clearly states that humans maintained 71% of communication relays. We didn't care because the relays were working. Chancellor Vex Thor looked ill. I remember those reports. I thought they were just bureaucratic paperwork. They were warnings, Mothrek said. Warnings that we were taking too much for granted. We ignored them for 200 years. Prophet Chancellor Velshira, leader of the ethereal species, rose from her seat. She rarely spoke in council, but when she did, everyone listened. I have seen visions, she said, her voice like wind chimes. I see humanity not as members of this council, but as its foundation. In my visions, the council is a great tower, beautiful and tall, but it stands on a foundation of quiet, steady work. Human work, she turned to Vex Thor. In my vision, you removed the foundation because you thought the tower was holding itself up. Now the tower crumbles and you finally see what was beneath it all along. Her words hung in the air. No one argued. The evidence was overwhelming. We must contact Earth, High Judge Korval said. We must negotiate their return. I've tried, Vex Thor admitted. They won't respond to any messages. Then we go there, Mothrek said. A delegation. We travel to Earth and request an audience. Vex Thor nodded slowly. I'll lead the delegation myself. No, Mothrek said firmly. You're the one who led the expulsion. You're the one they'll least want to see. I'll go. Judge Korval will go. We'll bring Prophet Chancellor Velshira. We'll send the counselors they might actually trust. It was a rebuke, but a necessary one. Vex Thor nodded in acceptance. The delegation prepared to depart, but the news from across the galaxy kept getting worse. On Ventar 4, the death toll from the plague passed 1 million. Cleese, the young doctor who had worked with Dr. Yuna, sent a message to Earth. Just one message, personal and desperate. Please. My people are dying. I know we don't deserve your help, but they're innocent, please. The message was received. Dr. Yuna read it in her laboratory on Earth. She read it 3 times, tears forming in her eyes. I want to help, she told Ambassador Hyunwoo. I know, Hyunwoo said gently. But if you go now, if we send aid now, what will they learn? That people matter more than lessons. That they can expel us and will still come running when they snap their fingers, Hyunwoo corrected. Yuna, I know this is hard, but we're not just thinking about today. We're thinking about the next 200 years. If the relationship doesn't change, this will happen again. Yuna wiped her eyes. How many have to die for that lesson? I don't know, Hyunwoo admitted. But I know this. If we save them now without any change in how they see us, more will die in the future. The same pattern will repeat. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let someone face the consequences of their choices. It was cold comfort. Yuna returned to her laboratory, looking at the plague cure she had completed. It sat in a storage unit ready to deploy, unused. On Council Station 7, riots broke out. Food supplies were critically low. The automated distribution system had completely failed. People were hungry and scared, and they blamed the council. Administrator Lixana tried to maintain order, but her security forces were overwhelmed. The station that had once been a model of efficiency and harmony was tearing itself apart. She thought about Engineer Daehyun, who had left detailed instructions for maintaining everything. Instructions that her staff had tried to follow and failed to understand. The humans had made it look easy because they had decades of experience. They knew the quirks of each system, the little tricks that made everything work smoothly. That knowledge was gone now, and it turned out that knowledge was more valuable than anyone had realized. In the third week, species began leaving the council. First the Rindal Collective, then the Silvari Union, then 7 others. They didn't leave in anger. They left because the council could no longer provide basic services. They left because staying meant economic ruin and security collapse. Some of those species applied to join the Terran Alliance. Others tried to make independent arrangements with Earth. A few succeeded. Those species that had good relationships with humans, that had treated them well over the years. But most were told the same thing. The Terran Alliance is accepting new members. We welcome partners who value mutual respect and cooperation, but we are not accepting members of the Galactic Unity Council at this time. That relationship needs to be resolved first. It was diplomatic language for, fix your mess before asking us to join your replacement. Ambassador Minho, who had been Hyunwoo's predecessor, watched events unfold from his retirement home in Busan. He had warned about this years ago during his own tenure. He had tried to make the council understand humanity's value. They hadn't listened then either. His successor, Hyunwoo, called him one evening. Was I right to do this? Hyunwoo asked. To let it get this bad? Minho considered the question carefully. Do you remember the old Earth story about teaching a man to fish? Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach him to fish, he eats for a lifetime. We've been giving them fish for 200 years, Minho said. They never learned to fish because they didn't need to. Now they're hungry, and they're finally asking how to fish. He paused. Yes, you were right. It's painful, but it's necessary. Hyunwoo ended the call and looked at the latest casualty reports. 2 million dead from various crises. 50 million displaced. Economic damage in the trillions. All because the council had taken humanity for granted. He hoped the lesson was worth the cost. 3 months after humanity's departure, the delegation arrived at Earth. Counselor Mothrek, High Judge Korval, and Prophet Chancellor Velshira traveled in a simple diplomatic vessel, not the Grand Council ship they might have used before. Humility seemed appropriate now. As they approached Earth's orbital space, they saw something that took their breath away. The space around Earth was filled with ships. Thousands of them. Not military vessels, but transports, cargo haulers, research ships, and colony vessels. The Terran Alliance was thriving. They've built all this in 3 months? Korval said in disbelief. They didn't build it, Mothrek realized. They already had it. They just never showed us. We thought they were small, limited. We never imagined. Their ship was guided to a docking station in orbit. From there, they took a shuttle to Seoul. The city stretched before them, beautiful and efficient. Humans moved through the streets with purpose and energy. There was no sign of the crisis consuming the rest of the galaxy. President Yujin received them in a simple meeting room. Not a grand council chamber, but a comfortable space with windows overlooking the city. She offered them tea, a human custom. They accepted. Thank you for seeing us, Mothrek began. Of course, Yujin said. Her tone was polite but not warm. What brings you to Earth? The question felt pointed. They all knew why the delegation had come. Korval spoke carefully. The Council recognizes that it made a mistake in expelling humanity. We've come to request that you rejoin us. Under the same terms as before, Eugen asked. Well, yes, we would welcome. No, Eugen said simply. We will not return as junior members who do all the work and receive none of the respect. That relationship was broken, Judge. You broke it. The bluntness was shocking. Council diplomacy was usually more subtle. But Mothrek understood. Subtlety was what had let the problem fester for 200 years. Sometimes clarity was needed. What would you need? Mothrek asked. To consider a new relationship? Eugen stood and walked to the window. Tell me, Counselor, in the past 3 months, how many have died because we left? Mothrek felt sick. Approximately 2.3 million from direct causes. Many more from secondary effects. And how many do you think we're comfortable with? Eugen turned back to face them. None, 0. We never wanted anyone to suffer. But we also couldn't keep enabling a system that took us for granted. We understand that now, Felshira said softly. We see clearly what we could not see before. You were the foundation we stood upon, Eugen nodded. Let me tell you what we learned in 200 years. We learned that being helpful makes people dependent. That doing good work quietly means no one notices. That asking for nothing means people assume you need nothing. She returned to her seat. We made mistakes too. We should have demanded respect from the beginning. We should have set boundaries. We enabled your dependency by never saying no. So what happens now? Korval asked. Now we build something new, Eugen said. Ambassador Hyunwoo will join us. Hyunwoo entered the room. He looked at the delegation with the same calm expression he'd worn in the council chamber 3 months ago. The Terran alliance is growing, Hyunwoo said, taking a seat. 8 species at first, now 23. More join every week. Species that value cooperation over hierarchy, that share both the work and the recognition. You're building a rival to the council, Mothrek said. No. We're building what the council should have been, Hyunwoo corrected. Equal partners working together. No junior members. No species taking credit for others' work. Just honest cooperation. He pulled up a document on the table's display. This is the Galactic Compact, the foundation of the Terran Alliance. Every member has equal voting power. Every member contributes according to their strengths. Every member shares in both the work and the recognition. The delegation read through it. The principles were simple but powerful. Mutual respect, transparent contribution, shared recognition, equal voice. The council could adopt these principles, Hyunwoo continued, restructure itself. Become a true union of equals. If you did that, the Terran Alliance would consider reunification with the council. You want us to completely remake the council? Korval said. Yes. That would take years. The member species would have to agree. Then take years, Eugen interrupted. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here building our alliance, helping those who ask for help on equal terms. When you're ready to change, we'll talk again. But people are dying now, Mothrek said desperately. The plague on Ventar 4, the Krellian invasion, the economic collapse. Surely you can help with those crises while we work on long-term restructuring. Eugen and Hyunwoo exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some decision already made. We've been helping, Eugen said quietly. The delegation stared. What? Korval managed. Did you think we'd just watch people die? Hyunwoo asked. Dr. Yuna sent the plague cure to Ventar 4 2 weeks ago. Through unofficial channels. It's being distributed now. The death toll is dropping. And the Krellians? Mothrek asked. We shared navigation data with council ships that requested it directly, not through official channels but through personal contacts with officers we trained. Your fleet coordination is improving. The economic crisis? Complicated, Eugen admitted. But we've been quietly stabilizing the worst situations. Some loans extended, some debts forgiven, nothing that would let the council off the hook completely, but enough to prevent total collapse. Felshira made a sound like wind through leaves. You've been helping all along. Why not tell us? Because you needed to understand what you lost, Hyunwoo said. If we'd saved you immediately, you would have learned nothing. But we're not monsters. We helped where we could quietly while you figured out the truth. The delegation sat in silence processing this. Finally, Mothrek spoke. What do you want us to do? Go back to the council, Eugen said. Tell them everything. The full truth of what humans contributed. what we're building now, and what it would take for us to consider reunification. She leaned forward. And tell them this. We're happy to help any species that asks respectfully. Any world that needs aid can contact us directly. We won't let people suffer because their leaders made bad decisions. But the council as a whole needs to change, Hyunwoo finished. Real change. Not promises or half measures. Actual restructuring. When that happens, we'll rejoin. Until then, we'll be neighbors. Friendly neighbors, but separate. And if the council refuses to change, Korval asked, then the Terran Alliance will continue growing, Yujin said. Eventually, most species will choose to join us. The council will become irrelevant. That's not a threat, Judge, it's just the reality of what's already happening. She wasn't exaggerating. The delegation had seen the reports. Species were leaving the council and joining the Terran Alliance in increasing numbers. How long do we have? Mothrak asked. To make these changes? As long as it takes, Hyunwoo said. We're patient. We've waited 200 years to be treated as equals. We can wait a few more if it means real change. The delegation prepared to leave. But Velshira lingered, approaching Yujin privately. You knew this would happen, the Prophet Chancellor said, when you accepted the expulsion so calmly. You had already planned all this, Yujin smiled slightly. We hoped it wouldn't be necessary. But yes, we had plans. We've had them for years. Multiple scenarios, multiple outcomes. We prepared for the day the council would finally push us too far. And now we see if the council can learn. If you can become what you should have been all along. Yujin's expression softened. We want you to succeed, Velshira. We want the council to transform into something better, but we won't sacrifice our dignity to make it happen. I understand, Velshira said, and I will do everything in my power to make it happen. The delegation returned to council space. What they found was worse than when they left. The Krellian occupation had expanded. Economic problems had deepened. But there were small signs of hope, too. The plague on Ventar 4 was finally being controlled. Some fleet operations were more coordinated. The human help, given quietly. Mothrak called an emergency council session. Every member species attended, even those preparing to leave. He presented everything he had learned. We have a choice, he concluded. We can restructure according to the Galactic Compact principles. Become a true union of equals, or we can continue as we are and watch the council dissolve. The debate lasted for days. Chancellor Vexthor had been removed from power. His short-sighted arrogance had cost too much. The new chancellor, a moderate named Quintar, supported the reforms. The vote was close. Some species resisted change. But eventually fear of irrelevance won out. The Galactic Compact was adopted. The council would restructure. It took a year of negotiations, arguments, and painful reforms. Every species now had equal voting power. Contributions were tracked and recognized. Transparency became the standard. It was messy and difficult, but it was real change. During that year, the Terran Alliance continued growing. Humans helped where they were asked, but they were no longer invisible. They were recognized, thanked, treated as equals. When the restructuring was complete, President Yujin and Ambassador Hyunwoo reviewed the new council charter. They consulted with the alliance members. Finally, they agreed. We'll rejoin, Yujin announced, not as the old council, but as this new union. The Terran Alliance will merge with the reformed Galactic Unity Council under the Compact principles. The ceremony was held in a new chamber, redesigned to show all species as equals. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood at the podium looking at the assembled representatives. 200 years ago, humanity joined this council with hope and enthusiasm, he said. We wanted to help, to contribute, to be part of something bigger. Somewhere along the way, our contributions became invisible. We became taken for granted, he paused. But we never stopped wanting to help. We never stopped believing in the dream of different species working together. We just needed you to see us, to value us, to treat us as partners, not servants. Now you do, he continued. And now we can truly begin, not as senior and junior members, but as equals, all of us building a better galaxy together. Chancellor Quintar approached and offered his hand, a human gesture of partnership. Hyunwoo took it. Welcome back, Quintar said. We promise things will be different. They already are, Hyunwoo replied. The galaxy moved forward, stronger and wiser. Humanity was no longer invisible. They were recognized as the essential partners they had always been. And this time everyone knew who to thank. The foundation was acknowledged. The tower stood stronger for it, and when challenges came, as they always would, the galaxy faced them together as true equals.